Hello, and welcome to the first segment of the West Valley Workforce Success Series. I'm your moderator today, Christine Gannon. I am the founder and CEO of Brightworks Consulting. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors today, City of Surprise, in partnership with the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone, also known as the GMFTC. We're excited to be here with you today. This is the first in a series, and the purpose is really to share the best resources for you that are available in the community today as businesses face talent attraction, retention challenges. So today you're going to hear from our subject matter experts about success stories, the challenges that they've had and how they've overcome them. And you might find this to be a model for yourself and your own organization. You're also going to have the opportunity to hear about some innovative partnerships that have been developed, created with local training providers, working to link really the industry with education and how that's been a successful model for our panelists in providing skilled talent to meet workforce needs. So let's go ahead and meet our subject matter experts today. First, we have Roxana Lujan Vega. She is the Senior Program Manager for Emerging Talent with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Welcome. Thank you. We also have Anthony Silva, who is the Regional Vice President with Equitable Advisors, and Aaron McKee, Director of Workforce Development with SunHealth. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Roxana, I'm going to start with you today. Could you give a little bit of an introduction about who you are and what you're doing at TSMC, and then also the skills that you typically hire for?
Yes, definitely. So as you mentioned, my name is Roxana Vega. I've been with TSMC for almost 2 years now. And in TSMC terms, that feels like 5 years. And the reason for that is because TSMC is new to the Valley. As you may know, we are constructing our new state-of-the-art fab in North Phoenix. So I basically handle all of early talent. So for our engineering hiring, our technician hiring, and also support groups. So indirect labor and direct labor. And it's been a great time so far. And as for the skills that we hire for, it depends. But today I like to focus on our technician type roles. We focus on hiring people with strong problem-solving skills and hands-on experience, or that are adept and can figure out and take initiative on learning how to do preventative maintenance on our tools and equipment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that and what those skills mean and the challenges that you've had trying to build that. We'll dive into that in just a minute. Anthony, I'm going to come to you. Same question.
My name is Anthony Silva. I'm the Regional Vice President, Equitable Advisors. And we hire me specifically for our Southwest region. So that's Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. We bring on solely financial advisors, many different avenues in the financial service industry. We're more on the entrepreneurial side of things. We bring people into our training development program and help them build their own professional practice inside financial services. So within that, we're looking for people that kind of have a combination of sales and analytical mindset, many of which have a financial, economic or accounting background from college, hiring mostly college grads. And some of the difficulties we've had are finding people that are able to get through the licensing and training process.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
And Aaron, last but definitely not least, a little bit about yourself.
My name is Aaron McKee. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for SunHealth, which is a continuing care retirement community nonprofit that operates in the West Valley. One of the things that we're very focused on right now in terms of skills is nursing, cultivating entry-level healthcare positions and training programs, as well as doing culinary and hospitality roles.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, we're excited to have you here today. Let's go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper. So Anthony, you alluded to this a minute ago, but what are some of the challenges that you faced in trying to meet the needs of this really important business and industry?
So it's an industry that a lot of people want to get into, and it's kind of the golden age right now, financial services. If you look at any of the top job reports, most of them have financial advising as one of the top 10 careers for the next 20 years. Because of our largest segment of our population, baby boomers, which are retiring, which need help not only with putting together a distribution planning plan for all the assets they've saved, but also how are they going to transition those assets to heirs, handle things like estate planning, elder care, all the things that go on with that. So you have many people that want to come into the industry, but the barriers are there's these licenses that you need and certifications to be able to do this career. You can't offer just general advice, even if you may have a finance degree, without things like your Series 7 security equivalence exam, Series 66, and to give top-notch advice and to give credibility, certified financial planner designation, which is kind of like the MBA in financial services, which creates a fiduciary liability responsibility to our clients. So that's a daunting task to get through all of those different accreditations before you can start the career. And that is one of our biggest challenges, is folks that can get through that before they start, also have the means to do that.
Okay, so that is a barrier in terms of looking at, maybe I just graduated from college and now I need to do some more learning and education and certification.
Call it the seconds,
Right.
another semester
Right.
after graduation, basically.
So the dauntingness is really around the time commitment as well as potentially the financial needs, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Erin, I'll come your way to talk a little bit about challenges that you faced in trying to meet the needs of your business.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the big elephant for healthcare is the pandemic. So we saw a significant increase in early retirements. We saw a significant decrease in people entering at those entry-level roles for those certification programs. And then we just saw a vacate of a lot of people that were in the labor market deciding to take other jobs or shift their careers during that time. So fortunately for us, we had already started some of this workforce planning with these types of certification programs prior to the pandemic, and we just decided to start pursuing. We knew that it was only going to get worse during the pandemic, and it actually set us up for future success.
Fantastic. Very good. All right, and Roxana, what types of challenges for you have you found?
So as I mentioned earlier, TSMC is new to the Valley, and we're, although there already is a presence of industry partners that are also in the semiconductor industry, we noticed there was a big gap in skills when it came to those hands-on experience type technicians. So I'm probably jumping ahead a little, but that's when we identified, we worked internally to see where the gaps were, where our difficulties were in hiring, which in this case was technicians. And that's when we partnered with the local school to create a quick start program.
So in terms of those positions and the skill set that you were looking for, it wasn't really entry level. So you couldn't really have, if someone, Erin alluded to this, we had a lot of people recently just leave the workforce and look for other types of careers. It really, you needed skill set that existed, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we do have a need for entry level technicians, but we also need those people that have robust experience or even have some fundamental knowledge of our industry and of working in a clean room and a fabrication setting. So that was a little bit of a challenge because since we are new to the Valley, we projected to start, or we announced we would start production in 2024. Had to have, some already skilled techs working with us, helping our fab to life.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm going to stay with you on this next question and let's dive a little deeper. So I know that you looked to the Maricopa Community College District and looked at the programs that they had available and their Quick Start program specifically. Why, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose that partner and how that's been working for you?
So I actually met with, her name was Leah Palmer, way when I first started at TSMC. So I was lucky enough to already have a connection to the Maricopa School District. But I worked with her and we identified a school that would be closest to our fab, because that's really important when selecting a training partner. If they're going to be delivering trainings for you or in partnership with you, they need to be in proximity of your location. So we couldn't pick a school that was like 50 miles from our site.
Right.
So that's when she introduced me to Paula Livingston at Estrella Mountain Community College, and that's where it began.
Fantastic. And so when you think about that program, we're going to come back to this question. I'll plant the seed for you, but think about how that came together. So if we have listeners that are trying to figure out, how do I start this partnership? Is it as easy as reaching out to Leah Palmer, who's my good friend? Hi, Leah. Or is it is it really, was it easy for you to do that? We're going to come back to that question because I know that will be on the minds of businesses that are thinking, did you just literally pick up the phone or send an email? Like, how did you do that? So we'll come back to that one. And Erin, how did you find your community partner and why did you choose them?
We were really fortunate to have a lot of really great established relationships and then also establish community involvement. Obviously, we're connected with Westmark with multiple committees. And it was through those relationships that we really started asking, okay, the schools, the high schools started asking, what are we needing in terms of future workforce? And we started really strong communication with them about what we're seeing in terms of the availability when students graduate from high school going into university. Are they working? Are they starting those, initial entry-level certifications in healthcare that would look like a medical assistant or a certified nursing assistant when it comes to nursing? And are they making those stepping stones? And for a long time, we weren't seeing that. Since starting our partnerships, we are seeing an increase of students that are going through those types of entry-level programs initially, or they're being encouraged to through different partnerships in the high schools, such as the career and technical education programs. They're wonderful and they're very strongly advocated for by our local high school districts and the CT directors. So that was part of how we started those relationships with our high school. And then it just naturally progressed with our college contacts as well. As we were talking about, being on different committees and being at different events and networking, we were discovering other people wanting to create these other pipelines as well to help support these students through that whole, that school and career development opportunity.
So for organizations listening, tapping into those existing relationships that you already have through organizations like Westmark, or if your organization is a part of a chamber, that can be really beneficial, it sounds like, in terms of just expressing the need to those existing relationships.
Yes, absolutely.
Powerful. So thank you. Anthony, I know that you partnered with NAU as it relates to sourcing financial planners. Can you talk a little bit about what attracted you to work with NAU as partner, and then why CFP and SIE, which I know are acronyms you'll tell us about, are so important to meeting the needs of your business?
Well, first off, we had been going to NAU and attending career fairs. We developed a relationship with the career office there at the business school, which I think was the key point to all this. They were very easy to work with. They introduced us to different business professors, curriculum folks, and we really expressed to them, hey, if you can get your students this type of training where they can start to get designations as a door opener to get into the industry before graduation, that would be absolutely enormous. So if you remember the old Series 7, that's big stockbroker's license, you need a company to actually endorse you or sponsor you to be able to take that, which was a huge impediment to getting into financial services with us, Vanguard, whoever it might be. The industry tried to make it a little easier. They broke that test into 2 pieces. And they allowed this exam called the Security Essentials exam to be taken by an individual without company sponsorship. So we approached the Career Service Department and said, hey, listen, we can add this as a class onto the university. Your students can take this. Now they have something to put on their resume. So when they're applying to these financial firms, they already have some experience, some credibility before they start. So that was the first and biggest one, to get one of those designations out of the way. And it allowed the students to figure out, hey, I'm doing this exam. Do I actually like this career? Is this something I want to keep going through and taking all these tests? So I think it worked out in both fashions. With the CFP, I have 15 advisors on my team, and I'm always pushing them for continued education. The Certified Financial Planner designation is a huge one. Consumers are becoming more and more aware of that designation, the fiduciary responsibility advisors need to have to make advice. And I was pushing our advisors to do it. Most of the courses are self-study, do it yourself. And I met Steve at NAU, who was one of the professors for the CFP program, and they were very different. They had a local class that our advisors could go to actually take that, do it together, create that camaraderie around that training. And it not only, create the camaraderie, but also helps with an extra commitment towards the career, their growth, and the company as well. So we're able to do all of it.
So that's fantastic because there's a couple of different options for those students. And one that you mentioned related to SIE, having the opportunity as a student to figure out, is this a career I really want to be a part of, and having an introduction to that before jumping into that. So important. So SIE stands for,
Security Essential Exam.
okay,
And then CFP is Certified Financial Planner.
fantastic, fantastic. Okay, Erin, a little bit about the successes that you've had, and if there are any metrics that you've been tracking that point to that success.
Well, we started, one of our partnerships I'd like to highlight, we started with the Dysart Unified School District. We had been in communication with them for multiple years prior to the pandemic, but the first year that we actually started this program was in the 2021 to 2022 school year. And I think one of the successes that we did find through that is how much planning and thoughtfulness we went into getting the program off the ground. We did years of work in communication, goal setting, what resources we're going to be needing, what could we provide as our partner to help, market the program to high school students. So essentially there are 18-year-old seniors that are involved with the program. It's a CNA program that's done at the high school level, and then they do their clinicals at one of our skilled nursing facilities. So it's a great way because they're required to do for 20 or 40 hours. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but they have to do it in a long-term care and hospital setting. Obviously, the pandemic created some really unique challenges for us in that, but we were able to make it work. And in the past 2 years that we've done it, we've had about 150 students between 4 or 5 different programs do their clinicals. So that's about 150 brand new CNAs and potential nurses as well. And we had already been doing some of this clinical internship hours or clinicals for nursing, LPN, RN. And then we also have other medical professionals as well. We have social workers that we do clinical internships with, dietitians. So we have kind of a lot of different and unique opportunities to have students reside with us. And for our high school programs, we had a really unique opportunity for them because we were able to align our benefits package to really strongly attract these graduating seniors. So we have a strong scholarship program. We recently just revised our tuition reimbursement program as well. So we made a strong argument, come work for us and we'll help you get through nursing school. And that was very appealing for our students. We hired from our first class at least 10 students from the first class, and we are starting this year for the current class with doing a bunch of different things in terms of educating them beyond just their nursing curriculum. We're talking to them about employability skills. We're talking to them on how you can be successful. On Friday, we're actually doing a clinical orientation for our set of students that are set to start next week. We're going over the building. What are the procedures when they get there? We're trying to give them all the tools beyond just the core curriculum in their program to know how they can be successful as they're entering into the workforce. Some of these students have never worked jobs before. And so we have to be very cognizant that we recognize where their deficiencies may be and where we can help them meet the expectations of any employer that they may be interviewing for jobs with in the next 6 months.
So important to our community too, in terms of those other skills, right? So I'm thinking about seniors specifically, when you think about the high school program and how many seniors have 1 hour of classes, right? And to your point, many of them don't take jobs or haven't taken jobs. And so having a pathway to a career and using that time, that's so impactful and meaningful. So sounds like a great path for high school seniors for sure.
It is, and it gives them an opportunity, as Anthony was saying, it gives them an opportunity to be exposed to the work environment. I think for an 18-year-old doing a CNA program, it's a little scary.
Right.
I mean, if they've never been into a skilled nursing facility or even any sort of retirement community, it's very different engagement of a demographic and a population. So for us to be able to walk them through, what's appropriate behavior, how do we address patients? They'll also be encountering people with potential memory, cognitive issues. So teaching them the skills, both communication wise and just appropriate workplace behavior, it's very different from their high school classes. So we want to make sure that they're set up with those professional skills.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's fantastic. So Roxana, let's talk a little bit about the Quick Start program and the success that you've had there's any metrics that you're tracking that if someone's listening and they're thinking, I want to implement something similar, what kind of metrics could I use? So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so as for the Quick Start program, like I said earlier, TSMC was new to the Valley and there was a limited amount of technician talent here in Arizona. So just to make the long story short, companies cannot poach from each other all day long. That doesn't benefit anyone.
No,
So
let's
it's
not do that.
Yeah, let's not do that. What's important is that we have the skilled workforce that we currently have. So that's importantly why we partnered with Estrella on this program. So not only was it to attract talent to TSMC, but also to the semiconductor industry. It's really important to, just get the word out about the industry and what type of benefits that you can actually build a lifelong career in our industry, even if you don't have a 4-year degree, even if you didn't go get your MBA and pursue a master's in electrical engineering, you can still work in our industry and contribute to meaningful jobs, to meaningful work. So as for metrics, we had about, I want to say 5 cohorts in this first wave of the program. We had a little bit over 70 students, if I'm not mistaken, go through the program. So at TSMC, actually, with our partnership with Estrella, we announced that we would guarantee an interview for every single graduate that successfully completed the course and passed their certifications. So from there, we did interview everyone, and from there, we tracked our internal metrics and seeing how far our candidates got through the interview process, how many received job offers, and how many are still with us, which they're still with us right now for the people that we hired. So yeah, that's what we're tracking right now.
And when did the program start?
In July of 2021, that was our first cohort.
Okay.
2022, I'm sorry.
2022. Okay, fantastic. And a huge shout out to Estrella and Paula Livingston, because I know how hard they work to ensure that the programs are known to the students on campus or prospective students. So it sounds like that partnership has been working really well.
They're wonderful partners.
Fantastic. So Anthony, I'll come your way. Let's talk a little bit about, as a hiring manager, your challenges of onboarding in terms of the barriers that might exist. We talked a little bit about that if they don't have the certifications or the designations, but what types of success have you had with the partnership with NAU and how that's worked to overcome some of those?
So one of the big ones was you have Arizona State that's in the Valley, you have NAU that's in Flagstaff, you have U of A that's down in Tucson. So being located in Scottsdale, when we went to NAU, went to U of A, those students all were desperate for internships. They want experience. They want to try out a career before they get into it, especially something like financial advising, where they have to commit to taking all these exams, licenses, and spend the time and the fees to get those designations. So what we realized quickly is we don't have the ability to give everybody internship, or in Flagstaff or Tucson, they don't have the ability to drive those hours to come down during the work week. So we, working through the career services department, created what we call an externship. So we would go bring ourselves and several advisors up to NAU, and we marketed it through the career fair and through the business career center. And we did a day in the life of an advisor, went through case studies. We had them do role plays. This gave us the opportunity to meet students, create relationships, but also gave them more insight to the tasks and the role that they would have before applying and committing to something like this type of career. So that was one of the big initiatives that created the initial relationship at the university before those designations that we spoke about before.
Really, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. That really helps with those barriers. If I'm not sure, we talked a little bit about that in terms of the engagement with seniors, but letting prospective new talent know what they're getting into ahead of time and giving them that exposure to not only give them data to work with and insights, but about a new career.
Yeah, I think that's been big to try to bridge that gap, those gaps.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, Roxanne, I'll come your way for our last set of questions, and then we'll turn to our audience for some Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. So Roxanne, as you think back to the pre-partnership days, so before your partnership with Estrella, and some of the challenges or barriers or hurdles that you really had to overcome before you got the program going, Did you have any false starts, or did you have anything that was a major hurdle that took more time than you thought to overcome, or was it just smooth sailing? You connected with Paula and the team and everything got rolling?
So luckily, my partnership with Paula and Estrella Monte Community College has been working very smoothly. So there hasn't been any false starts or anything of that nature. But I think some lessons learned that I took from, bringing up the program is getting the internal stakeholder buy-in. So there hadn't been a semiconductor quick start program previously.
Right.
This program is new. So a big challenge that I was presented with was getting that internal stakeholder buy-in, improving the work and the value. So now that we have already finished our first semester of cohorts, it's time to take the lessons learned from those courses, those cohorts, and implement those lessons learned not only in this next wave, but also for our internal stakeholders, show them that this is the value that we got out of the first wave, and this is how we're going to get even more value in the second wave. We're going to make everything either a little more intentional, more meaningful, engagement with the students, whatever it may be, whatever lessons learned we identified. It's important to implement those. So I think that's more so the more difficult challenges, getting that internal stakeholder buy-in and continuing to prove the value.
Fantastic. So the Quick Start program, if there are other semiconductor organizations that are in the Valley and we're not poaching, can they take advantage of this program too? Or is it specifically only for TSMC?
Anyone can take advantage of it. So from what I do understand, the Quick Start program, they have different industry partners, which is great because different members of the semiconductor industry work together to co-create the curriculum. So it's not just TSMC specific or other organization specific, it's industry specific.
Okay, wonderful. Very good. Okay, Anthony, what do you think were the types of events that were happening that led you to form the partnership with NAU? We talked a little bit about it before, but when you think about other organizations that might be in your shoes and they might be in the financial services, could be even banking, right?
Yes.
What types of events were happening for you, just if it was besides only the talent shortage, or is there other things that were happening that led you to NAU and form the partnership?
Well, I think for our current employees, getting those advanced designations can be daunting sometimes. You're working your full-time job, and then it's go on your own and take these courses to now get your advanced designations to benefit yourself and your clients. We do reimburse for that, but the motivation necessarily wasn't there to get started because it seemed daunting. And speaking with NAU, their big differentiator, especially for our employees here in the Valley, was they had a place to go and they could do it together. So I think the big initiative there is doing training as a group, doing it together. It provides so much more motivation, and they're able to form those bonds and not necessarily doing on a daily basis outside of work, and get through it together, to lean on each other to figure out this training, just like you would in school if you're working on a group project or a class together. So, those are some of the bigger ones for our current employees. That externship that I mentioned, working with the university to get students to come to that, then persuade them to go to the university's SIE course, and having folks like myself or other industry people come in and speak to them while they're in that career course, and explaining what it's going to take to get to this point is huge.
Fantastic. So if there's other organizations, financial industries that are interested to offer this, let's just say even for their own employees, because it is a daunting task. The partnership with NAU and Doug Small and reaching out that way is a good place to start, would you say?
Yeah, I would reach out to Doug, Steve, or directly to the business department. They can get you in touch, or you can. The biggest thing was shaping what we needed for hiring talent. And when the industry changed exams, they went from that just Series 7 to break that up into two parts, where students were able to, or people were able to take that before without needing a company to back them. We went to the universities because we knew that was the best place to go, and say, hey, we need to offer these classes at the university level, so students have this designation before they graduate. That is key. So whether it's financial service or other, if you identify a need, I think approaching schools, their goal is to get their students jobs and manipulate their curriculum to be able to best serve their employers when they graduate. I think that's the key thing to take away.
Absolutely. That link between industry and employment is
Yeah.
so important.
And NAU's done a great job of putting together those things specifically for financial services. There's so many companies here in the Valley that are based. So the CFP program, the SIE program, are huge for industry. So
Fantastic. Thank you. And Aaron, let's talk a little bit about any events or major hurdles that were existing for you. I know we talked a little bit about COVID and the pandemic and the challenges with that, as well as, you know, having the workforce within healthcare, either through burnout or just deciding we want to do something different. And so having that talent shortage. But as you think about forming that partnership, what are some hurdles that you had to overcome?
Yeah, some of the challenges that we had to overcome was one, cost of programs. Running a CNA program can be expensive depending on, you know, how much you can get in terms of used equipment and all of those things. And there is a limitation from the Arizona Board of Nursing on how many students you can have per teacher. And one of the challenges that we experienced at the beginning was finding a teacher with the correct credentials. That is an interesting thing that I think is a challenge for all CTE programs in Arizona, is having industry people with industry experience being able to work in a high school and having the teaching skills to kind of transition themselves from a professional industry into teaching high school students. It's a very different dynamic. And so just being able to retain teachers to be able to serve in these programs. And there is a limited availability of CNA and MA programs post high school as well. So as we're seeing an increased need for healthcare, because Arizona is a healthcare mecca, basically for the United States, there's a lot of workforce demand that we need to be able to see what are those future long-term challenges. And one of those is the availability of programs and seats in those programs. So one of the things that we've tried to do with that is help create some additional pieces. So we were able to grow our own program for certified caregivers. And there is a bridge program for CNAs to be able to obtain that certification in, I think it's less than 20 hours. So that's a nice stackable skill that we're able to offer to our students that are doing their CNA, maybe want to start working in the industry. We can give them an additional credential and an additional job opportunity for themselves.
Right.
And then also help grow our own business needs in terms of filling those entry-level positions with the hope that they continue on in their nursing education and someday become an LPN or RN. And we're more than happy to help support them financially. We have multiple programs that really help attract those students. And we have residents that are really passionate about scholarships. So we really talk about our resident scholarship programs as well. So I think as we address some of the barriers with our students, one is a seat in a program, and then two, how do you pay for it? You know, this is not necessarily a college program, but it is an expensive and upfront cost for someone that may or may not know if this is going to be their future. So I think that's a really tough thing to consider. Cost-wise, how can we help reduce the anxiety around the cost for those students, who some of them may be 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And then also offering those types of programs for our own employees. We've done a couple of different classes where we've offered to pay for training for our employees if they wanted to transition from maybe a culinary position or housekeeping position and want to have a certified caregiver. So not only opening those opportunities up to the public and your future workforce in the high school level, but also making sure that we're cultivating our own staff. We are very, very, very dedicated to career development, and we want to keep our employees for retention efforts. So anything that we can do to try and help grow our employees and make sure that they have the skills that they need to be successful at our organization and others as well.
Okay, so question I'm going to come back to each of you with. That was the last one. So Aaron, when I think about other employers in healthcare they're having similar challenges, advice would you give to another healthcare employer who wants to begin a partnership or begin, going down the path that you've gone down? Where would you have them start?
I would first start by asking themselves, what is their highest need? and talk about priorities. When it comes to talent acquisition can be very expensive. So you've got to identify the what do we really need, and then where do we get that from? And find out what's already established, because that was one of the easiest parts for us, is we knew where to go for a CNA program. We knew who was already kind of talking about it. We knew the programs that were there. And then we really just started engaging with them and saying, hey, we'd love to be able to help support your students, getting into the workforce once they're done with their program. How can we help? Can we host? And we just started brainstorming ideas. Can we host you for your final externship? When they're done with the program, they can come see our facilities. Can we maybe come and talk to your students about, what are your next steps and how can we help connect you with the resources? But a lot of that really involves knowing what resources were already out there to help support, or creating something that we saw as a need to provide to those students to help maintain in us getting them into the industry.
So knowing what's available in your community really is a good place to start, so that you're not recreating the wheel potentially.
Absolutely.
And then for prospective employees that may not be in the high school scenario, but are interested in Sun Health, your website, best place for them to go?
Yep,
Okay.
sunhealth.org/careers. And my information will also be available if there's any questions about the types of programs that we've cultivated, or if you're interested in employment, I'm more than happy to share my information as well.
Fantastic. Roxana, how about for you, the innovative partnership that you created with Australia, for other organizations, where would you recommend they start?
Just to echo what Erin said, I think the most important step is identifying those internal needs. So mapping those out, and as in talent acquisition, I personally, and most of us don't have a technical background, especially in our industry. So the best place to start is reaching out to those subject matter experts that are actually doing the hiring, that have the needs, so they can tell you what needs they have for this year, but not only this year, for the next few years. So when you're creating a partnership with someone external, or you're taking advantage of one that already exists, you can not only focus on your current needs, but also have some foresight and look into the future and see how you can continue to develop those needs for your long-term pipeline. So definitely looking internally and identifying and mapping out those needs is critical.
Okay, and for prospective employees, TSMC on the internet, or?
So go to brilliant@tsmc.com.
Oh, brilliant at TSMC. Okay, I like it. Very good. Anthony, for you in the financial services arena, where would you, what advice would you offer to other financial services organizations that want to create some type of an innovative partnership as well?
Well, if they're hiring at the university level, which I know many of them are, reach out to the local universities, because they have, like Erin mentioned, there are so many programs already set up, and NIU has been ahead of the curve with implementing a lot of these different curriculum and trainings, and check with the universities to see what's already existing, and then just engage with those universities and students, and think of creative ways that you can do that to stand out. For us, it was creating that externship on campus, because we did notice that we went to career fairs that there were probably 2/3 of the students were asking for internships and desperate to build out their resume and get some experience. And there really wasn't that avenue there during the actual school year. And if they don't live in the Valley, for us, outside of during the summer, it's very hard to provide that opportunity. And for many students, we're a small office, so we can't bring in 20 interns in summer. It's be a select few. So that's where we were engaged, and we went to the universities and said, hey, we can do this. If you guys provide us a classroom to utilize and help us market this, we can come to you. And I think utilizing the resources that are there, the colleges want to engage with employers. They're desperate for those relationships. They want to place their students. So that would be the first place that I would start.
Fantastic. And prospective employees?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, probably, specifically because I hire for the Southwest. Outside of that, you look for equitable advisors wherever you live. But for the Arizona area, reach out to me, Anthony Silva, on LinkedIn, and that'd be probably the best way.
So hopefully for our audience, we're going to switch to Q&A for a minute and I'll put you on the hot seat again. But hopefully for our audience, especially employers who are listening, I know that we hear from employers all the time who talk about how expensive it is to acquire talent and the process that they have to go through. And sometimes it's arduous. And so I would say, you know, our panelists today have provided some great options in terms of partnerships and collaborations that they've formed and paved the way really for other organizations to take advantage of that. So we are going to move to our Q&A and use technology for a minute to talk through some of the questions that have come through. So the first one is says from Kirsten Hall. Hi, Kirsten. I just read that Intel invested $50 million over 10 years at Ohio universities to ensure that their workforce talent pipeline to ensure that they have a workforce talent pipeline. Does TSMC have something similar in place with Phoenix area education partners?
That is a great question. It's actually something we hear pretty often. So TSMC Arizona specifically has been, to echo my head of HR statement, we are building the plane and flying it at the same time. So we've been, we have our multiple priorities, but one of our top priorities is definitely working with and establishing academic partnerships here in Arizona. So there are a ton of projects underway with local universities that will probably be announced pretty soon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Next from Lydia. This is for each of you or whoever feels most able to respond to this question. So she says, thank you for your time today. I am in a new role managing business and education partnerships with NAU's Engineering College. From the industry side, do you have any advice for making connections with industry leaders or organizations that she could join? So best way to make a connection with industry leader. I think we talked about this a minute ago in terms of just doing a survey of the landscape, what's available, and tapping into your community colleges and your universities. Joining Westmark would be a great one, right? That would be a great first step. But other thoughts on how they could get connected with industry leaders? Anything else?
I would say the best way for people to reach me personally would be to go via LinkedIn. I mean, doing a search on there, you can easily look up either people that work in workforce development for organizations or talent acquisition, and just being very direct, consistent in your messaging, because as you may attest to, talent acquisition, employees, we receive hundreds if not thousands of messages a day. So just keeping it succinct and getting straight to the point. I want to meet with you on this date to discuss this. What time works for you? Does this work for you? That's the best way to engage with someone, and not get lost in the hundreds of emails.
So be direct.
Direct.
I'd say besides the reach out, I think that's great, but I've been to the NAU All Career Fair and that one's more engineering centric, making sure you're creating relationships with those companies there outside of the career fair. So follow up and maybe meet for lunch and hold a Zoom call, learn about them, what they're looking for, and just like building that natural relationship. And I think that significantly helps.
Fantastic.
I'd also say professional organizations and associations. So I know the professional association that we belong to at Sun Health, that has been a great idea generator for us. We have it's called the Arizona Leading Age, and we have a conference every year that talks about specific things that are impacting our industry and our specific market as well. So that's a great way to introduce, what are some challenges other people are experiencing? How are they combating those challenges, trying to overcome them? And then also just reaching out, if you're looking for engineers, look at all those associations for those specific engineers that you're interested in recruiting. So if there's a civil engineer, there's an association for that. There are groups that are professional groups for those things all over, especially in the Phoenix metro area. So I would definitely say professional associations and professional groups.
Fantastic. Great advice. This is a question for Erin. Back to you. What were the initial steps that you took with the Dysart district to connect?
We actually had a relationship with Dysart previously. We had an employee that had worked at a different school district and knew them through just mutual connections over the years. And it just started out as a conversation of we're thinking about bringing a CNA program And that's kind of where it all began. But if I were to say how to introduce yourself to the school, find out who the CTE directors are. In your local schools, find out what kind of programs that they have around you. Because while we're partnered predominantly with Dysart, we have multiple partnerships that are at different stages. We are partnered with WestMec, who also has a CNA program. Both of their schools are right down the street from two of our senior living communities. So that's a great way to find out what's in your proximity. We're also partnered with Agua Fria School District as well. We're in more initial phases with them, but we're also trying to investigate what are things that we can do to broaden that partnership. And I just sent an email asking for a graphic design program to create a flyer for me. We wanted to see something to engage with students, and we wanted them to show us what they're thinking about and what they like. So we're kind of just idea sourcing. And students are a great way to do it. They have their own ideas. They're a different generation. So sometimes it's just great to get connected with what's local to you and who's local to you. What high schools, what programs do they have? And then I can tell you they are looking for partners. So definitely reach out to them and say, how can I help? And they'll welcome you with warm embraces.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you. Roxana, this question is for you. The cultural differences between Taiwan and the United States are many. From a workforce standpoint, what has been the biggest surprise to TSMC management as it relates to US employees?
I wouldn't say there's been a huge surprise that I have heard of. As I like to point out that our executives and our founder and our CEO, they're all educated here in the United States. So in Taiwan, there's currently kind of a little bit of a blend of Western and Eastern workplace culture. So prior to our Taiwanese managers coming over to the United States, they were part of a manager program to kind of get them ready to work with the workforce here in the United States. And we're continuing to develop and expand on that program here. So, and we do that to avoid any big surprises or anything like that. So I believe they were pretty well prepared prior to working with the US workforce.
Okay, and the culture is different, right? So there's some significant cultural differences. Is there any training within the organization for employees to learn about the Taiwanese culture and vice versa?
Yeah, so like I said, the manager training program, but also for our new hires that were hired here in the United States to go train in Taiwan for 12 to 18 months. They were part of immersion classes to immerse them into the environment in Taiwan to get them kind of used to the cultural feel there. And then we're doing that for our Taiwanese assignments who will only be here for a couple of years. We're doing that for them here in the US as well.
So that helps with assimilation into the organization, and maybe the ramp up time is even impacted positively in terms of giving them access to that.
Yes.
Fantastic. So I think we have a couple more questions, but technology isn't playing nicely with me. So I am looking to our technical support team to see if maybe they could read the questions to us. Potentially, they could come on the mic for a minute.
I think you got it.
Don't. We love technology until we don't. Until it doesn't play nicely. So while we're managing that, any advice we haven't covered, anything that we haven't talked about that you're thinking would be valuable to either a prospective employee listening or an employer listening? And Erin, I loved what you said about community, because part of my organization, we support organizations with diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions. And one of our mantras is we believe real change happens at the local level versus strategic, and all of that is so important in having a global perspective. But real change is when we're in the community, eye to eye with people, whether it's on Zoom or in our local community. So I love what you said about communities. Is there anything else that you would offer to prospective employees or organizations?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the most critical pieces of developing these relationships is starting small. It doesn't have to be this massive, big program that gets you overwhelmed just thinking about it. It can be something as simple as I'm just going to use an example of someone that I've seen, but if you're a financial advisor, going and talking to high school students about how to budget. I did a class with some students at Canyon View High School last week, and I talked to them about what they can expect in new hire paperwork. Here's how you fill out a W-4, A4, because these are things that you don't know and can be very overwhelming as people are going into the workforce. They can be things that are as small as those things, because someone may have never talked to them about how to fill out a W-4. I also gave them a baseline explanation about 401k and retirement to 16, 17, and 18 year olds.
Wow.
So it can be something that you find valuable or something that you wish you would have known or you wish that would have been there. Reaching out to these teachers and saying, hey, could I do this? Could be the simple way that you just get your foot in the door. And those things can tend to expand from there. I think that's really important. For our company mission, we are really committed to investing not only into our healthcare resources that we're wanting to provide, but to cultivate our future. We feel it's really necessary.
That's a great point. Thinking about 401k is always a great one.
For 18-year-olds,
right. Because I don't think they're thinking 401k at 18, maybe, I don't know, some are, but I think that's a great nugget in terms of reaching out to those organizations to say, could we speak to them about, these important things and plant the seed at least.
I also asked the question to the teachers that I work with. I said, hey, what do you see your students struggling with? What do you think that they need? How can I support your curriculum? Because there's so much that they do cover in their courses. Sometimes it's just better for it to be someone else that they see other than their teachers, because it can spark a different type of conversation.
Sure. So, Roxana, any other advice you might give?
I would say the biggest thing would be networking. So for the potential job seeker, networking is huge. It's never what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer in that. Whether it be someone giving you a referral or someone actually just saying, hey, I know Kevin over here has an open role at this company. So networking is huge. Also networking with academia, with teachers and professors. As Erin stated, it's important because you, as an industry, you don't only want to, take. You also want to serve as a partner. You want to be a servant leader in your community. So that's really important as well for organizations to execute on.
I think that's really good advice. And I would go one step further with your networking and back to Erin's point in terms of, do we know that 18 seniors, let's just say seniors, regardless of their age, that they know how to network? So thinking about planting that seed in terms of networking is king, right? I mean, it's all about your network. So, or queen, I should say. It really is about your network. And so ensuring that those seniors, employees, that they understand how to network and how to have small talk and how to start that relationship. I think that's important. So great points, ladies. Anthony, anything else from you?
We've done similar stuff where we've given back to local level and gone into high schools and being a financial advisor, done budgeting courses or general financial planning. That's usually a big lack in curriculum, especially at the high school, elementary level. But I think you touched on the networking aspect as young people coming into the business world, especially young people today, as the generation that was raised on iPads and talking through cell phones. It's not a skill set that's naturally there a lot of times. I think trying to build those skill sets, things like Toastmasters or other skill building areas will be greatly helpful entering the workforce and doing those networking type of things. Warren Buffett's a financial guy, one of the people that I follow, and he has all these diplomas. The only one that he had in his office on his wall, I think, was a Toastmasters certificate, because all those other degrees and things that you have, while they are extremely valuable, if you can't communicate with people,
Right.
oftentimes they're worthless. So building those essential skill sets so you can speak to employers and put yourself in position to the best position to get the careers and jobs that you want.
Fantastic. Great advice. So before we wrap up, we're still having a little bit of a technical challenge. So I would
So the last question was actually for Roxana. If you could please repeat the website to visit for TSMC careers.
Yes, it's brilliant@tsmc.com.
Okay. So a couple things in terms of parting and closing out today's session. First and foremost, thank you to our panelists for joining today and all the fantastic advice, recommendations, success stories that you've had. Congrats on developing innovative partnerships and relationships, and hopefully all that they've shared have been beneficial for you. Something that from our organization has been tremendously helpful has been joining Westmark. So being a member of the Westmark community and having access to 15 communities through one organization has been a tremendous asset for us in networking and building relationships and knowing the latest that's happening in the West Valley. So I would just say, if you're interested, and a lot of us have been talking today about join those professional organizations, Westmark is definitely the place to be in the West Valley. If you're not in the West Valley, quite honestly, understanding what's happening in the West Valley with all the growth and what's coming. So I would offer that. I would say join us again on March 15th for the next Workforce Success Series webinar, and you can find out more information at westmark.org. And just thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next time.